Yes, everybody, welcome back to Talking Wolves, and Premier League football is back. Welcome to the first match preview of the 2025-26 season here on the channel. I hope you guys are keeping well. As always, be sure to smash the like button down below and subscribe to the channel. Let's try and hit 400 likes on today's match preview. But yes, Wolves will be hosting Manchester City in the Premier League opener under the lights. Well, say under the lights, it's summer, so it's probably still going to be light at Molineux tomorrow evening. But it is an evening kickoff in the Premier League, and a real tough test for Wolves to start off the season. But we'll get into it today. Of course, the latest team news from Vitor Pereira's pre-match press conference, and we will have the opposition perspective later on in the video as well. But like I said, tough test for Wolves to kick off the season. A pretty productive second half of the season under Vitor Pereira. Of course, it included our 6-match winning run. Although the season sort of petered out towards the end, let's hope that we could try and find that momentum as quickly as we can. There aren't many tests tougher than Manchester City, especially to kick off the season, as you would know, and you'll probably see from the stats popping up on the screen throughout the video. Man City tend to start off seasons quite strongly, especially in the opening days. Wolves haven't got the best of form against Man City, and also Wolves' form in August, it tends to be quite poor. But it'd be brilliant if this month we can break that poor August record and just try and kick off the season and have some real good momentum to kick off the campaign as well. Now, in terms of Manchester City, of course, you have Pep Guardiola's press conference. There's been team news throughout the day as well. Some big absences for City. Ederson set to be out for this one. He's apparently injured, but more than likely going to be moving away. Savinho the same. No Rodri, we believe. No Vardiol. You know, some big players missing for City. And if you want the opportunity to maybe take advantage of that, this could be the one for Wolves. Now, before I get into it for the Wolves team, of course, tomorrow we will be paying tribute to Diogo Jota and his brother Andre Silva, who we unfortunately lost throughout the summer. Now, this is going to be a real big event, and I would say if you are going to the game, try and get to your seats as early as possible, because Wolves are going to be paying tribute to that. Across the South Bank, there's going to be a mosaic tile, a massive tifo. I can't remember if it was the first ever tifo Wolves are having at the ground, or at least the biggest tifo we've ever had at the football club. But it's going to be an amazing event. And of course, Diogo Jota's favourite song, Fields of Gold by Sting, will be playing before the game as well. I believe it's a minute's applause for Diogo and his brother Andre. So it's going to be quite a touching event, quite an emotional. But I really hope that can give us some energy to, for the players to fight for Diogo and, hopefully help us be that 12th man, basically, and try and get a positive result out of this game. We know it's not being the best of pre-seasons for Wolves. In fact, we didn't win a game. But Wolves aren't the only team to have gone winless in pre-season. There are a number of teams in the Premier League in a similar sort of situation. And I said it before on the podcast, it's probably important that we make mistakes and don't do things right in pre-season, so Vitor can correct that and make sure we are, we do them in the right way or a better way when the season kicks off. He said he's happy, he's excited to be back in the Premier League. And in terms of team news, he said that no real issues. Mosquera won't be quite ready to start the game, but will be on the bench. Fabio Silva, as expected, still working on his fitness, so shouldn't be expected to be in the squad tomorrow either. But let's flag up my predicted lineup on the screen. Now, probably 9 of the players I'm pretty certain of. But yeah, we'll go for it. Jose Sarr, I think, will start in goal. I think the back three will be Totti, Agbadu and Matt Doherty. I think Keanu Hoover will start at right back. Of course, we linked heavily, and he's set to sign pretty much Jackson Chachua. Hasn't signed in time for this game, so I think Keanu Hoover will keep his place. David Muller-Wolf on the left. Midfield 2 of Andre and João Gomez. Jorgen Strand-Larsen leading the line. The number 10s are difficult for me. I think on this graphic I've gone with Marshall Menetzi and Jean Arias. But I think Fer Lopez is a fair shout because of how well he played during pre-season. Jean-Luc the Bellegarde's probably got a fair shout as well. I just think Menetzi probably adds the energy that maybe you need. But saying that, Fer Lopez started last week with Jean Arias. And if I was, last week I probably would have said whatever team started on Saturday would probably be the team that would start for me against City. But I've got a feeling Minetti probably gets a start just because of his energy and behind, really, and just all throughout the pitch. So it's going to be a tricky game. But of course, before we move on to the opposition perspective, a big shout out to our channel partners, Betmate, who have partnered with us for the early stages of the season. If you're into your fantasy football, you think you know your football, get involved this season with Betmate. I'll make sure to leave a link in the top of the description, or the QR code has been on the screen throughout the video as well. Here you go on the screen, me joining in for one of the Wolves Manchester City games. I'm joining one of the fantasy games here, where you select 7 players from that game who you think will do well. I've picked quite a few Wolves players because defensive actions are rewarded quite nicely. You get save points as well. That's why I've gone with Jose Sarr in goal there. And you got a captain and vice captain. The captain will get double points. The vice captain get 1.5 points. And of course, get involved. For your chance to win from the prize pots, you must be 18 plus UK residents only. And please do gamble aware. But it was great earlier on this week to speak to David Mooney from the Blue Moon podcast to get his thoughts on this fixture, on Manchester City going into a brand new campaign, how he thinks the Club World Cup may have affected them slightly. We recorded this one a few days ago, so there have been some things that may be slightly out of date. We may mention Ederson throughout the video and so on. But yeah, here's what David has to say ahead of the big game. So then, David, thank you very much for jumping back on Talking Wolves. How you been keeping? You enjoyed your summer?
Yeah, it's been really nice actually to not have to really worry about City. I didn't do any episodes during the Club World Cup, so it was really nice to not have to I was paying attention to it because obviously I'm watching City play, but to not have my editorial hat on throughout the whole thing, it was actually really nice to just be a fan properly.
Yeah, no, well, I will ask you about the Club World Championship, but we spoke a little bit about it on your podcast as well. I did catch little bits of it, and City did okay. I'm sure you probably would have wanted them to go a little bit further, and I think they could have done so as well. But last season, a little bit frustrating for you guys. Probably one of the sort of lower years, I suppose, under Pep Guardiola. I mean, he set such a high standard for himself and for Manchester City overall, and it was a little bit of a slog at times, I think, for you guys last year. Going into this season, I'm sure you're hoping to have a much better campaign overall.
Yeah, it was a weird year last year. So the bulk of the issues were kind of late October, November, December time, but they were so bad that they left a real kind of scar for the remainder of the season. And then they had a bit of a wobble in kind of January, February time when they were 2-0 up against PSG, lost 4-2. I mean, in fairness, PSG did go on and win the Champions League quite handsomely. So, fair's fair. They were the best team in Europe in the competition. But the Real Madrid tie, I mean, they absolutely hit self-destruct in that one. They were 2-1 up, cruising in the final few minutes, gave away two late goals at the Etihad. They had to go to the Bernabeu and try and get something out of that, and conceded within 3 minutes. There were the constant issues of City being run straight through the middle of. That they just couldn't stop without the idea of what you expect of a City team being where you have runners and you have people going beyond the ball. They couldn't do that and stop teams running through the middle. So what actually got them third place and into the FA Cup final in the end last season was just having everybody in the middle, just stopping any runs. And it wasn't very creative. It wasn't very easy to watch, but it got the job done. And it was kind of a means to an end to get the season through. Now, you mentioned the Club World Cup. They got they got all of their incoming business done, apart from James Trafford, before that. So the idea being, okay, we're going to go to this and we're going to be a new look Manchester City for this competition. And in some aspects they were, and then in other aspects they were exactly the same as last season. And they played really well. They tore Juventus apart with their attacking performance. Got ran through a couple of times, and Juventus scored a couple of times because of it. And then Al Hilal, they were brilliant in the first half against Al Hilal, but then the second half they were wide open and conceded enough to get to extra time and lose the game. So yeah, you're right. Ideally, they'd have gone a lot further into the competition, but there are green shoots of City getting back to where they were. I don't know how ready they are for the start of the season for those green shoots to start to blossom. It might need a little bit more time to properly get going, but I'm kind of pleased with where City are right now, and I'm feeling quite optimistic about the season. But then again, in a weird way, it's that start of the season feeling, isn't it? Nobody goes into
You
the
don't
season
know.
thinking they're about to have the worst season ever. Everybody thinks they're about to get back to what they were good at. So, we'll temper expectations like that. But I'm quietly confident that we'll see much more of the old City again this season.
Well, as you're aware, I'm sure there's a lot of Wolves fans expecting the worst, like I've already made you aware. But no, I agree. You never know. You could start off the season pretty well, and other teams around you already drop points, and you've already got a huge advantage. And I think for you guys, probably looking at the title race again, that's possible, especially with some of the big boys all playing each other quite early on in the season as well. Very quickly, staying on the topic of the Club World Cup. Do you think there could be any sort of hangover going into the start of the Premier League season? I mean, City have still had a break, of course, but not as long as some of the other teams. And have you had what I would call like a proper pre-season, any sort of friendlies in between as well?
Yeah, well, weirdly, I thought when they went out, it's such a simp thing to say, isn't it? Like that thing of oh well, at least now they'll get a proper rest. It's like, yeah, but obviously they wanted to win the tournament, but they didn't, and they went out early. And you say, well, the positive is that they've got out early and they can have a rest. It's like everyone knows that. Everyone else is kind of going, oh God, well, that's just obviously the pro City spin, isn't it?
Yeah.
But like, I do think it's true. There was the story, if they'd won the FA Cup final against Palace, which obviously they didn't, but had they won the FA Cup final and then won the Club World Cup, they would not have had any players available for the Community Shield that weekend. They'd have had to put out a real scratch team of players that hadn't gone to the Club World Cup. The positive is that none of that happened. So they got the full 4 weeks rest. They have had a bit of a pre-season, although Guardiola was speaking this week and said they chose to have more training sessions than pre-season games. They played a behind closed doors friendly against Preston, beat them 1-0. And then and the team looked pretty strong as well. It looked like they put out a pretty strong team against Preston. Although with it being behind closed doors, we never actually got the full team and never actually got to see who it was. Just a few things in pictures. And then they played Palermo in what is, as far as I can tell, their only pre-season game other than that Preston one. And they put out again. This is I spend all my life busting myths about City, and the big one of, oh well, City have got two different 11s. And it's like, it's not actually true. They have quite a small squad. There's just a lot of quality in there. They put out two different 11s against Palermo. So I literally don't have a leg to stand on that one. And yeah, they won that 3-0 and they looked pretty good. Palermo, not sure quite how much of a test they really are, but they pressed City high and City did well to play through it. So it's a kind of a good standing ground for what the season will be. But I do think in terms of rest and readiness for the season, be interesting to see, because year on year they've gone into seasons not really ready for the new season. It kind of dates back to the COVID year when they played got knocked out early in that mini tournament in the Champions League against Lyon, but they played in that and then ended up. In fact, they started the season at Wolves that year. It had been your second game, but City's first because they got the week off. For playing in that, and they were kind of surviving until the first international break. And I really thought this season would be different this season because they'd gone out of the Club World Cup early. I really thought this season they'd be ready to hit the ground running, but no, it turns out they're just going to be surviving until that first international break when hopefully Rodri's back again, because Rodri is the big injury doubt at the minute. He is back, but he's had a thigh strain after that he picked up in the Club World Cup. So Guardiola says he's not ready for 90 minutes, but we might see some of him in the games up until that first international break. So preparations maybe better than other previous seasons, but I'd say still not tip top.
Yeah.
It'd been nicer to get a few more friendlies in, but they've had plenty of training. That's the good thing.
Yeah, it'll be interesting because Wolves have, since we came back into the Premier League, got an awful record in August. And I think, like we had a conversation beforehand, our pre-season has been far from ideal in terms of results. A lot of negativity off the pitch, and a lot of Wolves fans expecting City to absolutely thump us. But I think, historically at Molineux, we tend to have. I mean,
it's tricky. It's always tricky.
I mean, there's one year when De Bruyne put in an absolute phenomenal performance, which we've had conversations about before as well. I think you put a lot of things into perspective. City with an interesting pre-season. Vitor Pereira, we've played quite a high line. I have no doubt against City he's going to have a low block and try and frustrate you guys. It'll be interesting. I think there could be there is a potential for some surprises on Saturday evening as well. Yeah, and then Ryan Aït-Nouri, I mean, we discussed this on your show a little bit earlier on. A decent fee. I think a lot of Wolves fans will agree. It was a good fee for City, I think. What have you thought of him so far? I mean, what was your initial thoughts on the signing, but from what you've seen so far at the Club World Cup and any moments in pre-season, how have you found him so far?
Yeah, I'm delighted with it. I think so. A friend of mine at work is a Wolves fan, and he came over when the deal was announced because I was in the office. And he came over and said, a little bit suspect defensively, but going forward, he's out of this world. And the fee you've paid is an absolute steal.
Yeah,
and I kind of agree with that assessment. That's kind of where I'm at with it. I think in the final third, he's been brilliant so far. The way Guardiola's used him, I think is really interesting because he's been high and wide at times and being the width for City to kind of stretch the pitch. But then a couple of times in the Club World Cup, a couple of times against Juventus, certainly against Palermo, you see him kind of cutting inside in the way that Guardiola was using Cancelo and kind of having him come into the number 10 position. So it'll be interesting to see how he does it this year. And also if Aït-Nouri's adept at doing both of them, there's also the kind of bonus of you get the team sheet, and back in the day, you get the team sheet and see João Cancelo at left back. You go, okay, well, he's going to be coming inside and running things from the middle. Whereas now, the opposition will look at it and go, I don't know if he's going to be stretching it wide or coming into the middle. And actually, they might do both. They might switch it from time to time in a game, what they're going to do. And it's good that they've got those options. So I'm really excited to see that. And again, I agree with the assessment defensively. There was a goal City conceded against Al Hilal, where he basically just got barged around a bit and wasn't really strong enough in the transition. And it's a little bit concerning because City have been really struggling on transitions recently. But, I mean, the theory is if the setup is solid, City don't face that many transitions. So if he is a bit weak defensively on that, then you kind of put up with it for the bonus that you get in the final third. So I'm excited to see what he'll bring, especially as, I love Guardiola, and I think he's been brilliant at left back for City. I think he's been good at centre back as well. So if it allows Guardiola to push inside, and also every now and then they can use Guardiola as the left back getting down the wing and holding the width, I think it gives City a lot of options. And once again, 31 million, as it's been reported, I think it's an absolute bargain.
Yeah, we did see it in spells last season, possibly the season before, where he was almost playing a little bit inverted in certain systems that we played as well. So I think he's got the ability to do that. And I mean, you probably would have seen it, but throughout the season, you'll see his ability on the ball in tight spaces and so on. I think if he's on the edge of the box, he's got 2 or 3 players around him. He'll be able to wriggle his way through. And I think if he's able to put the ball into the area and you've got, some of the attacking players around you, Haaland waiting in the box, I think in terms of goal contributions, he'll certainly add to his game as well. I think
he's gone straight into my FPL team.
Yeah, I'm tempted by it because I think he was a little bit low on numbers. I think that was a concern of a few Wolves fans, but I think as soon as you add that quality that Manchester City have got around him, I think he'll instantly add to that as well, especially with him being able to attack probably 90% of the game as well, depending on the opposition. So
if they can work out a way to get him doing mostly attacking, which City tend to be able to do with at least one of their defenders, then I think he'll be flying.
Yeah, no, I agree. Is there any other areas of business do you think City need to be aiming for? I mean, you let in. Well, Jack Grealish, I think, is set to go earlier this week. Savinho may still go. Is there a space for another attacker, do you think, for City?
It's odd because we've kind of spent the summer saying the squad's too big. There's Guardiola has talked in the past about how he hates telling players that they're not in the team. And I'm kind of like, mate, the squad you've got at the minute, you're going to be telling a lot of players that they're not in the team week on week. So you're going to have to thin it out. And then, like, week by week, stories came out that, for instance, they rejected an offer for Mateo Kovacic, that John Stones, who was one of those who was on the kind of maybe leaving list, not through quality, more just like injuries. Entirely through injuries. He came out and said, I don't know where these have come from because I'm not going anywhere. And then Ilkay Gundogan said, I want to stay. And all this list of players that might be ones to watch as outgoings is kind of slowly shrinking of players that might leave. Grealish, I'm absolutely gutted that it hasn't worked out. I think he's a brilliant player that has been brilliant for City, but off the field, his discipline has not been good enough, and that's basically killed his City career. Savinho surprises me, largely on the basis that I don't know if that's going to go through to Spurs. Obviously, when people see this, they might have a better idea. But it feels like such a weird one. It came out of nowhere, and like if it happens, I kind of think, well, they've got Oscar Bob coming back as a right midfielder. Phil Foden he had problems last year that hopefully he's through for this year, and hopefully can get back to his best. They've already brought in Ryan Cherky. They've got Reinders, who's a more offensive midfielder as well. They probably don't need to bring anybody in. They're probably okay without. I mean, we've done all this and not mentioned on the other flank that they've got Jeremy Doku still there, as an attacking option as well. Omar Mamouche is still around, so there's still a lot of attacking players there. Even if they do go on to lose both Savinho and Grealish, and I think the size of the squad actually is the thing that needs to come down in terms of business coming in. I think it's like a nightclub. I think it'll be one out, one in, and that's kind of how it has to be. I would like to see a right back come in. They've let Kyle Walker go, and if we're being perfectly honest, it was about time. He didn't have a good season last season. When the going got tough, he disappeared to AC Milan. By all accounts, didn't do a great job there either. So it was the right time for him to move on. It means they're going into the season with, if they've got John Stones fit, then he can play right back. If they've got Manuel Akanji fit, he can play right back. Other than that, they're going into the season with Matthias Nunes, who is a midfielder that is, in Guardiola's words, not good enough to play in midfield, playing at right back. And Rico Lewis, who I like, but again, he sees himself as a midfielder. So it's a bit patchwork there, if I'm being honest. So maybe a right back, but other than that, it's a weird kind of feeling going into this season, because for all the problems City had last year, I actually think it feels quite new and quite fresh. Guardiola's appointed the captain himself, which is the first time that he's done that at City. Normally he lets the players vote. He wasn't happy with them picking Walker last season and the way it all transpired with him. So he's gone, no, Bernardo Silva's my captain. Bernardo Silva, another player that we've not mentioned so far.
Yeah.
So he's gone, no, Bernardo's my captain, and that's it. This is the captaincy group. I'm picking them. He's got a whole new backroom staff. Juan Marleo went, and they brought in Pep Linders, who was Klopp's number 2 at Liverpool. Yeah. So there's a lot of newness around this team, even for as much as a lot of the team is still here from last season. I think the incomings plus that, they make me feel quietly confident that things are kind of getting back to where they were. Maybe a right back would kind of be the icing on the cake there. Maybe that's a little bit too much to ask for this summer, because they have brought in 5 players, so maybe it is a little bit too much.
I'm sure. I mean, as you know, the season starts, still a couple of weeks left of the window, and I'm sure Pep and the team could address that. And even if Savinho moves on, I'm sure City will protect themselves in regards to a buyback or a chunky sell on fee anyway, because I think at that age, there's still so much untapped potential there. And
Spurs is an interesting one for him as well, because it kind of feels like it feels like City wouldn't normally sell to Spurs, if you know what I mean. Because Savinho as a player has a lot of potential, and when City sell players, they tend to be selling players that are either past it and they've got the best of, or they're going to a club that has pull like Real Madrid or Barcelona or Bayern Munich or something like that. Whereas it feels a bit odd for Spurs to come along and go, that player that's got a bit of potential that you're not really sure about and we're not really sure about. How about 50 million for him? Yeah. And if City were to turn around and go, yes, that seems about right, it just feels like a really odd transfer. What are City happy to let go of there? What are Spurs seeing that maybe City aren't? I don't know. It's an interesting one. Keep your eye on it.
Yeah, I think players like that as well. Obviously there's every chance that he could break into the City team as as a first team player, but I think at Spurs he could be the man or one, the top end players. I tried to think this morning of someone I could compare it to, and I tried to think of maybe like when Gabriel Jesus went to Arsenal. Obviously, that's probably not worked out the way that they would have wanted to, but I think at the time that was a big transfer for Arsenal, and he was like the number one man. Injuries haven't
I think
helped him.
again the difference there though is that City knew what they were letting go of in Jesus.
Yeah.
I think they'd realised that Jesus wasn't going to be Aguero and wasn't going to be Haaland and that sort of level, and they were quite happy to move him on for the fee that they got. Whereas Savinho does have the potential to be a top player. I mean, we didn't really see it last season, but mitigating factors: first season at City, first season under Guardiola. 20, 21 years old, and let's not forget, it was an absolute bin fire at City for 3 months. So there's a lot of mitigating factors for him not producing, and it just feels like it feels like a bit of an odd one. But we trust the people that are in charge of these decisions, don't we? That's exactly. We'll find out what's going on.
Exactly. And with that being said, then David, I'm sure you're hoping for a successful season for City. But going into Saturday's game, what are you expecting? Can we get a score prediction?
Yeah, I hate going to Molineux, these days. You have this habit of defending really, really well. I mean, here I do sit as a fan of the opposition going, how dare you defend well? You know what I mean? It just seems so entitled that you might actually try and defend. So I know how it sounds, but yeah, you always defend well. I'm expecting the same sort of thing again. I'm not expecting an easy game. I don't know quite how ready City are for the season. I think they're readier than they've been in previous starts to the season. But Molineux is a nasty, nasty opening day. Certainly as the evening game on the Saturday. I can see Molineux being right up for this. And I think City have got questions to answer after last season. And I think it will be interesting to see the receptions that if he plays Nunez and Aït-Nouri as the fullbacks, it'll be interesting to see how that goes, because obviously Nunez didn't entirely leave on the best of terms. So yeah, it'd be a fascinating one. I can see it going the same way as in previous years. Wolves sitting deep, defending well, City dominating the ball and trying to break through. I'm interested to see how easy to play through City are these days. I'd like to see Reinders play in this game. If Rodri's not available, I'd like to see him alongside. I'd like to see Reinders and Nico Gonzalez alongside each other as the base of the midfield, with Reinders allowed to kind of drive forward. He was doing that really well against Palermo. He's another one that's been he's quite cheap on the fantasy league. So if he survives the Pep roulette. He's my early tip for maybe a few goals from City. If you're looking for a bargain at City, he might be the one. So I'm hoping he gets some time, and then beyond that, I mean, I don't know who Guardiola's going to pick. Quite frankly, there's so many options there. I'd like to see Oscar Bob play. I'd like to see. Obviously, he'll pick Haaland in there, but Marmoush could be in, Doku could be in. We don't know how he's going to try and balance this team. If we can get Aït-Nouri running through the middle, Reinders kind of getting up there to support him as a runner, then the wingers have got runners again, and that could be quite interesting. Haaland struggled a bit recently being crowded out, and that could be another issue if Wolves are playing really deep. But if Haaland can occupy a few defenders and then some of the others can actually be the runners around him, then City could have quite a good evening. I don't expect it'll be easy. I do hope that City can come away with the points, because I'd like to see some signs of progress on last season. They actually they finished last season quite well, but as I say, it was a means to an end. They basically gummed up the middle and stopped the opposition running through them. I'd like to see a little bit more adventure than that for the start of this season. I will say a very tentative 2-1 City win. I can see once again Wolves taking the lead and City having to battle back, and I hope there's enough character in this City team to be able to do that, because if I know they did it last season, I think it was more luck than judgment last season that they did it. Yeah. I'd like it to be more judgment than luck this year.
No, I think I agree. I think it'd be a close game as well. I think it'd be closer than people expect as well. But we'll wait and see. David, I'm looking forward to it. The Premier League opener at Molineux on Saturday evening. Thank you for jumping on the channel. I'm sure I'll catch you for the reverse fixture.
Thank you very much for having me.
Mate.
See you soon.
So big thanks once again to David. Great to have him on the channel. And guys, we're not too far away now from the Premier League opener. The time of recording, it's just over 24 hours away. So I am really excited. I'm just glad to have proper football back. Competitive football. I am a little bit nervous for the season. You guys know that I am positive. But I just really hope things just click into place. And you know what? A positive result, whether it's a point, whether it's 3 points tomorrow, would be phenomenal. But as always, guys, let me know your thoughts, your score predictions in the comment section down below. As always, really do appreciate your support, and fingers crossed for 3 points for the Wolves. We'll be back tomorrow with all the post-match content as well. Enjoy the game, and I'll catch you on the next one.